Man, it's kind of lonely doing a show solo, let me tell you. Kev Nash in Puerto Rico. I don't have the Chatterbox guys to sit around me to do the show today. Justin Kinner with you here, 1410 ESPN Radio. It is the Kinner and Kev Show here on a Tuesday. I hope everybody has had a great day. Beautiful day outside. We got a lot to get into. NFL minicamps, mandatory minicamps officially underway. Browns and Bengals reported today. Now, some did not. While everyone was focusing on the Cincinnati Bengals and the players that could and could not report for them, there's a star player for the Cleveland Browns that was absent at day one of minicamp, of course. So I thought that was interesting, and that's kind of where we're at right now. That's what we'll open up with here in just a little bit. So, again, I'm Justin Kinner. We welcome you in live here on 1410 ESPN Radio. The Reds had an off night last night, of course, but they're back at it today. They somehow, over the last couple of weeks, have been able to swing interest back in their favor. Not just swing interest back in their favor, but obviously win enough games to get back into the swing of things, okay? Right now, when you look at the standings, okay, when you want to talk about the NL Central, all right, the NL Central, as we currently sit here right now, when you look at where the Cincinnati Reds sit, they were a last-place team not even 2 weeks ago. And, Tom Brenneman talked about this too, talk about a team that's basically in the basement, but all teams are very close to 500, of course. So, are they, last place? Yes, technically. But right now, a second-place team. Cincinnati's sitting 7 games behind the Milwaukee Brewers. And as we've talked about in the past, the reason that is significant is because the recent stretch of games that they are in the midst of. They are in the midst of, before starting that series with the Cubs, 5 of the next 7 series were all against NL Central opponents. Obviously, 5 of the next 7, they just knocked out 1 of those. So now 4 of the next 6 series are against NL Central opponents. Not game 1 and 2 tonight, though, and tomorrow against the Guardians. That's what we'll talk about more here in a moment. But the Reds, they're going to have a chance against Milwaukee. They're going to have a chance against the Cubs again. They're going to have the Cardinals and Pirates coming up around the corner. For them to be able to close the gap and gain ground the way that they have, it all comes with not just playing divisional opponents, but beating divisional opponents, which is what they've done. They took 2 or 3 from the Chicago Cubs at Wrigley Field, right? And then they went ahead and turned right back around and then welcomed the Cubs to Great American Ballpark and took 3 or 4 from them at home. All right, you look back at that series. That's what's unfortunate about that series against the Cardinals, dropping 2 or 3 at home against the Cardinals. That's that little blip in the radar, if you will, because, of course, they swept the Dodgers, right? They dropped 2 or 3 against the Cardinals, and they take 2 or 3 against the Cubs at Wrigley. They sweep the Rockies. Then they dominate the Cubs at home again, and obviously looking to keep that momentum going against a first-place team and the Cleveland Guardians coming up here later on tonight. The Cleveland Guardians coming into Great American Ballpark, 42 and 22 on the season. They've won 6 of their last 10. They've been sitting atop the AL Central pretty much all season. They've been one of baseball's bigger surprises. This was a team that really didn't have a whole lot of flair to their roster. They didn't make a lot of big additions. Shocker. Cleveland didn't spend a whole lot of money in the offseason, of course. And you look at the roster, it's kind of dull. It was kind of boring. And then all of a sudden they get out to a little bit of a hot start, and then they lose Bieber for the season. Right? They lose Shane Bieber for the season. Bieber was a guy that was being talked about in big trade packages for a lot of teams around Major League Baseball. There was reports and rumors coming into the season that maybe the Reds were kicking the tires on potentially looking at a Shane Bieber deal. Obviously, he's out for the season. You think the chances for the Guardians are done and out for the season, and here they are, 42-22, one of the best records in baseball. Right? I think they have like the 3rd best record in baseball as we currently sit here right now, and they have, their work cut out for them going up against one of the hottest teams. One of the best records in baseball going up against one of the hottest teams in baseball, the Guardians and Reds, coming up here later on tonight. 7:10 the first pitch, and then, of course, 6:40 is when coverage begins right here on Dayton's radio home of Cincinnati Reds baseball, 1410 Wing AM. Brent Suter, again, going to be on the mound tonight for the Reds, going a little bit with the bullpen game tonight. We'll see if that works. Now, of course, kind of pushing some guys back, pushing the Hunter Green and the Nick Lodolo. They've been taking on a heavy workload on those arms. So, again, just trying to be a little bit creative as David Bell. I'm not a big fan of it. This is the stuff that would have angered me a year, 2, 3 years ago. Right now, this is the new wave of baseball. This is how you do things. So I'm going to sit back and let David Bell do his thing, because I've always said when it comes to David Bell, as long as you're winning, you ain't going to hear a peep out of me. Ain't going to hear a peep out of me as far as that's concerned. Scott Campbell on YouTube. He says, let's go Reds. What up, Scott? I hope you're doing well, sir. We're live on the Justin Kinner Show Facebook page, by the way. We're also live on ESPN Dayton's YouTube channel. We're live on Chatterbox Sports on YouTube as well. So plenty of ways you could take in the show, but also make sure you're interacting with the show in the comment section, because we'll be able to interact with you that way as well. So yesterday's show had a chance, and we're going to hear from, we're going to have our conversation that we had with Tommy Thrall here just around the corner in hour number 2 here in a little bit. But one of the big talking points for the Cincinnati Reds yesterday, of course, was for the first time, the Reds got a chance to hear from Noelvi Marte. Not the Reds, but the Reds fan base, right? Noelvi Marte was one of those unfortunate, news breaks that happened at the beginning of the season when it was announced that he was going to be suspended 80 games for violating the substance abuse program, right? In fact, today it was made official that the Reds have officially reinstated Noelvi Marte. He was sent to AAA Louisville on a rehab assignment. So I don't know how many games, I don't know how long he's going to be in Louisville, but obviously we're getting closer to seeing more depth added to the middle infield, which is going to help establishing guys in their respective roles, which was what the anticipated roles were for these guys coming into the season. But you look at Noelvi Marte. He addresses the media yesterday, and this was the problem that I had. Me and Elliot, shout out to Elliot Rearing, by the way. Me and Elliot had a problem with his response. I did not think that, I have a hard time believing that when the Cincinnati Reds and their PR department and the team got together and they were figuring out how kind of the talking points of what he was going to say through his interpreter, of course, in the press conference, I highly doubt that what he said is what they had told him to say. And had they did tell him to say that or sign off on him saying that, they're not doing a very good job. They're not doing a very good job. Noelvi Marte, when questioned or when making his first official statement, since, of course, it was announced that he was going to be suspended for the first half of the season, of course, this is what he had to say. He said he doesn't know how it happened, basically. He basically said he has no clue how it got there. That's a little concerning. That's very concerning, because at the same time, this was kind of Elliot and I's point yesterday regarding the fact that this is a guy that needs to basically step up to the podium and say, listen, it's my responsibility to know what's going into my body. It's my responsibility to know that I am not even accidentally violating the substance abuse program, because when you look at the Cincinnati Reds coming into the season, there was a lot of expectations for them to win. There was a lot of people questioning the Reds front office decision-making when it came to the handling of the middle infield, because there was talks of them potentially trading Jonathan India because of a backlog of middle infielders. And then they go and they add Candelario and they started adding some more middle infielders, and everyone's like, what are we doing? Then we come to find out that now we don't have depth at middle infield. It was because of, well, they knew they were going to be without, obviously Noelvi Marte for quite some time due to the suspension. And then, of course, that was one of many reasons why the Reds got off to such a slow start, potentially almost, burying themselves in the month of May. It was a very unfortunate start for the Reds. I was talking about this the other day, that if the Reds' struggles would have continued, it would not have all been on Noelvi Marte, but being one of the many reasons and distractions that was basically a reason for such a young team to have such a slow start, I would have booed the hell out of him. I wouldn't have been happy with him whatsoever. But for him to come out and basically just say, yeah, my bad, I don't know how that got there, that's concerning, because that doesn't sound like a guy that is basically taking accountability and going to make sure that it doesn't happen again. Because here's the deal. A lot of you are hoping that he's really, really good, and I'm hoping he's really, really good as well. But the problem is if he is really, really good moving forward, we always have to worry about, well, what if it gets in his system again and he didn't know how it got in his system before? Don't you guys see that that's a problem? Don't you see that that's a problem? And if it's a problem for him, could it potentially be a problem for some of the other guys on this Reds roster? Maybe I'm overreacting a tad, but this is what the Reds are snake bit. They have that luck. This kid's going to end up turning into a perennial all-star, right? And then out of nowhere, he's going to get hit with his second, violation. Like, that's what I'm concerned about. And by the way, technically, this is his second violation. This isn't something new. It may be his first official violation for Major League Baseball, but it's not his first violation when it comes to PEDs as far as that's concerned. So keep that in mind. So it's a double-edged sword. To me, it's bittersweet. It's great that they're getting Noelvi Marte back. It's great that they optioned him over to Louisville right now for a rehab assignment, because he's going to kind of get back in the swing of things, and they'll call him up and hopefully, he starts swinging the bat well. He adds, defensive depth to this team. I'm hoping that it all works out. I'm hoping that things go well. But if not, that's a concern for me and the Reds moving forward. If you're just tuning in, Justin Kinner with you here, Dayton's ESPN Radio, 1410 Wing AM. Cincinnati Reds in action tonight. They got the first place team from the AL Central in the Cleveland Guardians, 42-22 on the season, sitting atop the AL Central. And you got the Reds, second place in the NL Central, 32-34. They sit 7 games back. They'll have Brent Suter on the mound tonight. As far as that's concerned, Tristan McKenzie will be on the mound for the Cleveland Guardians. 7:10 the first pitch, 6:40 coverage begins right here on 1410 Wing AM. All right, we have a lot to get into. And by the way, we'll have more Reds talk coming up here in just a little bit. Had a great opportunity to catch up with the radio voice of the Reds, Tommy Thrall. We'll get into that a little bit later on in the show, but keep in mind we'll have more Reds Guardians talk here in just a little bit. 518-1410, 518-1410. That's the number to call and jump in on the conversation. A lot of stuff still to dive into. NBA Finals continuing on here, and I want to talk about those NBA Finals because I'm tuning in and I'm watching. I mean, that's what the championship game and series is supposed to be, right? The 2 best teams with the best players in the league. And although there are recognizable names, there's your Jason Tatums and your Browns, of course, and obviously you look at the other side. You got the Celtics, you got your Kyrie Irvings and your Luka Doncic. You got all these guys, but it still just doesn't feel right. It doesn't. Something just feels off about this finals, and the ratings are replicating that as well. We'll talk about that. The WNBA chaos. How about this? Competitive eating. We got breaking competitive eating news for you coming up around the corner. Also, Buckeye Country Superfest. If you want a chance to go see, Buckeye Country Superfest at the Shoe here in a couple weeks, I have an opportunity for you to win some tickets to see Zach Bryan. I'm a big country music fan, of course, so I'm excited to be giving those tickets away. I'll tell you how you could win Buckeye Country Superfest tickets when we come back. Don't go anywhere. All right, and we are back. Justin Kinner with you here, Dayton's ESPN Radio, 1410 Wing AM. Kev Nash in Puerto Rico. I'm flying the plane solo today. Yesterday, I had 4 guys from Chatterbox Sports, helping me out. We did the show live from the Hamilton studio, from the Chatterbox studios over in Hamilton. But back in the WING studios today, the Reds had an off day yesterday. We had a chance to catch up with the voice of the Reds, the radio voice of the Reds, Tommy Thrall. We'll have that coming up for you around the corner. Urban Meyer made a stop over at our tent during the memorial. And Tom Brenneman and Urban sat down and had a conversation, on air. And we carried that. We carried Tom's show last week. But if you missed the conversation with Urban Meyer, we do have that coming up for you here in just a little bit as well. That was really cool, doing all the shows from the memorial last week, of course, and having Urban stop out and just seeing all the big names. I mean, Chris Pratt. I mean, obviously you had Peyton Manning. So many celebrities out there. Every big name you could think of was out at the memorial last week. It was pretty cool. Pretty cool. So I just saw this, by the way, and what a wild, and again, I don't really chalk this up to it being sports by any means, but I found this wild, that one of the bigger stories today, I guess, if you will. How about Joey Chestnut? Okay, Joey Chestnut has officially been banned from the 2024 Nathan's Hot Dog Eating Contest, according to the New York Post. Major League Eating, big deal. Major League Eating says that the 16-time winner is unable to compete due to his endorsement deal with Impossible Foods. Wow. I mean, look, don't you think it's a little disrespectful from, the hot dog eating contest, from the 2024 Nathan's Hot Dog Eating Contest? I haven't seen a sport disrespect their star more since, the WNBA. I mean, this is right up there with it. This is pretty impressive. And I don't even care. I think that this stuff's gross anyways. I think the hot dog eating contest is gross. Of all my takes I've been ripped for, I get ripped for this one the most. I don't find this interesting. I find it actually kind of disgusting. I think it's wild that people actually find it interesting. The other thing is, the reason I know that this is not as big a deal as what you guys think is because it's been watered down to no pun intended. It's basically been watered down, not the hot dogs, but the act itself has been watered down to being some kind of promotional entertainment piece at minor league ballparks for minor league baseball games. Like, stop it. The fact that it's getting this much, attention is just wild to me. I find it gross. Do you guys find it interesting? Does it pique your interest at all? I am kind of curious people's thought on that. I mean, Randy Scott, what up, Randy? Randy on YouTube, he messages into the show. Let's see if I can make sure that people can read this. Here we go. Major League Eating breaking news. Kobayashi already retired. What could it be now? Joey Chestnut goes vegan. I mean, yes, I have no clue what is going on in the world of competitive eating. Major League Eating. We're not talking Major League Baseball, Major League Soccer. We're not talking NBA, NFL. Major League Eating has somehow found a way to not just crack its way into this show, but sports shows across the country. Unbelievable. But yes, I thought that was a little strange. But I will say, I mean, look, the 2024 Nathan's Hot Dog Eating Contest, for those of you out there that say, oh, this is horrible for them, like they paid all that money to sponsor this and then to not have him in it is such a big deal. The fact that he's not in it, it has gotten way more clicks. It has been this has been spread out. The reach on this story has touched more people than the amount of people that the actual contest would have touched to begin with. So this still works out pretty well for Nathan's Hot Dogs. I'm just saying, it is what it is as far as that's concerned. But I made my little joke about the WNBA a little bit ago, and I had a take a while back that I thought this was a good thing for the league, and I don't think it's a good thing for the league. I don't think it's a good thing for the league, because the reason I don't think that this Caitlin Clark stuff is good for the WNBA is because it's basically showing that the league doesn't want it to be good. The league doesn't want to be good. The league doesn't understand how to be good. That's the problem. Like the Caitlin Clark's not the problem. All right. And you guys can get mad at the athletes. The athletes aren't even the problem. But the bottom line is that honestly, it's the league itself that's the problem. It's women's basketball as a whole that's the problem. The women's basketball media had complained because no one was giving the sport the proper attention that it deserved. Then when it's getting the attention, they're scolding people as if we don't understand what basketball is, saying, no, don't give us that attention. We're going to tell you the kind of attention to give us. And it's almost as if they don't understand that no sport out there gets to dictate the narrative. The NFL is the most powerful sport out there. They don't control the narrative when it comes to the basically to the investigations and everything else that kind of goes into their league, right? And they're a $1 billion industry. The WNBA operates at a loss, and they think that they could tell the media how they need to operate following their sport, following their league. I watched Stephen A. Smith just go at it with Michelle Gumake, and I forgot the other ESPN women's basketball analyst that was on on Get Up yesterday. But I like Shimney, I like them, but like the idea that like it was just kind of uncomfortable realizing that they don't understand how media works. I know Sinead, they've worked in media for quite some time, but it's very obvious that they don't even understand how this works. Telling Stephen A. Smith that, well, you need to be talking about Asia Wilson to kick off every show so that more people will tune into their league. That's not how it works. People need to tune into their league so that it will kick off his show. Kind of like Caitlin Clark. The people don't care about Caitlin Clark because media shows and sports talk shows are talking about Caitlin Clark. Sports talk shows and sports media shows are talking about Caitlin Clark because the people are interested in her. You guys don't understand how this works. Like, for everyone out there that disagrees, you're wrong. And it's not an opinion. I'm just telling you straight up. You don't know what you're talking about. You have no freaking idea how this stuff works. It is so irritating. And I'm tired of, like, you have to coddle how you approach these things because you might be disrespectful to women and all this. No. The most respectful thing that you could do in this situation is to handle them in this situation the way you would handle male reporters or male athletes in this situation. Everyone is an athlete in this situation. Everyone is a sports reporter in this situation. No one's going to get preferential treatment because, oh man, we can't talk. We got to be careful because it's the women's league. No. The women's league wanted to get the attention that all of the sports leagues get. That's what they're getting. And now they want to dictate how it's done. That's not how it works. Telling like Stephen A. Smith has had the #1 sports talk show in all mediums for over 10 years. And you're going to have those women go on his show and tell him how to do it. That doesn't make sense. For everyone out there, just so you guys know, the Dallas Cowboys are not popular because First Take leads every segment with the Dallas Cowboys. All right. The New York Yankees aren't popular because that's the most viewed and talked about team in baseball. All right. The Los Angeles Lakers are not the most talked about franchise, and that's why they're popular. They're the most talked about NBA franchise because it's the Los Angeles Lakers, because there are way more Lakers fans than any other fan base out there. There are way more Cowboys fans. People care way more about the Dallas Cowboys than any other fan base out there. Well, how come they don't talk about the Bengals and Joe Burrow? Because anyone outside of the 513 don't give a damn. It's as simple as that. It's not a hot take. It's common sense. Well, how come they don't talk about Asia Wilson? And how come they don't talk about Sabrina Ionescu and blah, 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 blah? Because nobody cares outside of those pocketed fan bases. It's as simple as that. That's not a hot take. That's not a shot at those women. That's not a shot at the league. Those are just facts. I hate when facts become, oh man, he's taking shots at us. No, those are facts. Those are straight up facts. Like, we have to stop with all of this. The bottom line is, so again, Caitlin Clark kept off the women's USA team, right? And everyone out there, all right, you had those reporters that were going on the shows yesterday, and they were trying to report Rebecca Lobo. I like Rebecca Lobo, but they were trying to report on the situation as if it was on equal playing ground as everything else. And it's not. Well, on the men's team, they do the NBA, despite ratings being all over the place, they don't have an attendance problem. The NBA didn't have ticket sale problems. The NBA just got a big-time billion-dollar TV right deal done. The NBA using the men's game as a talking point to be the equivalent of how you're going to talk about the women's game. You can't do that. Not sexist, okay? I'm not anti-women's sports. We're just talking facts here because I'm no longer tiptoeing around stuff because I'm tired of having to worry about hurting people's feelings. If facts hurt your feelings, that's a you problem. It's as simple as that. It really is. That's a you problem. To sit there and say, well, the women's USA team, they have a strict couple-year process of how they go about vetting the team. Stop it. They've won gold for 7, 8 straight years, and no one cares. No one cares. No one's going to watch the USA women's team coming up because Caitlin Clark's not on it. That's not a hot take. That's the last 7, 8 years of winning gold and TV ratings that support that. They've won gold the last 7, 8 years, and there's no TV ratings to support it. No one cares. No one cares. The WNBA, they have all these stars that are really, really great. That's awesome. Not enough people care for the league to make money, for you to tune in, this, that, and the other. It's as simple as that. Not a hot take. Those are just facts. So when Caitlin Clark comes along and there's an opportunity to help grow the game, because that's what they said. They want to help grow the game, right? But they're doing everything that they can for the new people that are coming on to watch the product to help grow the game. Their first introduction to tuning in to the WNBA is just being scolded by a bunch of women reporters and the current players saying, man, we wish we miss when these eyes weren't on the product. Those are actual comments, and those are actual statements being made by current players and media. Man, I miss when no one was paying attention to it. That, like, are you kidding me? This is wild to me that it has gone this far. It is wild to me that it has turned into this. I said that I felt like, hey, the NBA thrives on the player storyline-driven content. And right now, there's no storyline-driven content for the WNBA outside of one player. There's only one player selling out arenas. There's only one player forcing these WNBA teams to go from small venues to NBA venues to sell out NBA venues. You know what I mean? Like that's where we're at right now. There's only one player. It's not a coincidence. You could say it's the rookie class. Well, the rookie class is not selling out Washington's NBA arena. Only one player is. And Angel Reese, she's the one that's the closest to that arena. She couldn't sell it out. They played at the normal, regular-sized arena, not the NBA arena. All of this is just getting so annoying to me. It really is. It's exhausting. And if it's exhausting to us, how exhausting do you think it's going to be for her, for Caitlin Clark? I mean, interesting. I mean, the stuff's wild at the end of the day. It's the Kinner Kev Show, 1410 ESPN Radio. We welcome you in. 518-1410, 518-1410. That's the number to call and jump in on the conversation. But yeah, the Caitlin Clark stuff's fascinating to a certain extent. But, I mean, like, you can't say that you want to grow the game. But then when the fans that are just tuning in for the first time are being greeted by just nothing but the women complaining about the one star that they're tuning in to watch, of course they're going to take sides. And I'm not even buying. Everyone said you would be a fool to ignore the racial element to this. I don't know if this is just straight up jealousy. I don't even know if it is because Caitlin Clark's white. You know, let's say that Angel Reese was in Caitlin Clark's shoes, and that Angel Reese was the star that everyone was filling up arenas to watch. I don't like, would we say it's about race then? Well, probably, because that's how everything's race, right? Every time there's a problem in the world, it's race related. Like, stop. The bottom line is to me, it's not about race with me. The WNBA has white star athletes all over the place. No one cared when it was those white athletes. What is it about Caitlin Clark? It's because there's never been a white or a black athlete or any athlete out there that has reached the levels of popularity that Caitlin Clark has. It's as simple as that. It's not controversial. All right. It's not polarizing. It's not even hard to comprehend or understand. It's just pure jealousy. It's all it is. And it's not a lazy male take who hasn't tuned into the WNBA. I used to watch the WNBA more than the NBA back when there was Cheryl Swoops and Cynthia Cooper and you had Tina Thompson. You had Dawn Staley, who was playing for the Charlotte Sting back at that time, who she would go on to play for the Houston Comets. You had Yolanda Griffith with the Sacramento Queens, right? Tina Petachero. Let's see who else. I can go down this list on the Lisa Leslies of the world. You can go down this list. All right. The bottom line is no, it has nothing to do with that. The league used to be really, really popular, and then it kind of disappeared for a bit. And now it's come back because of one player and one player only. Kinner and Kev, 1410 ESPN Radio. Browns Bengals reported to minicamp today. Well, some did, some didn't. We'll talk about that next. And we are back. Justin Kinner with you here, Dayton's ESPN Radio, 1410 Wing AM. So tonight on ESPN, ESPN's latest 30 for 30, false positive. Butch Reynolds, former Buckeye, Olympic gold medalist, a former world record holder. Had a chance to catch up with him. I learned a lot about him, actually, outside of just the 30 for 30. Really excited about that. We'll have that conversation with him. Between him and I coming up here in just a little bit. We'll be joined by the Olympian here around the corner. But I learned a lot about him. Like, for instance, obviously, back when, and the SEC still viewed, look, the SEC is still the best conference in college football. I don't think that's a hot take. I don't think that's up for debate. I know the Buckeye diehards out there would like to say otherwise, or the Big Ten diehards, but it's the SEC and then everybody else. And the Big Ten's, right behind them, but it's still the SEC. But for me growing up, it was always about that SEC speed, right? Even when Ohio State was at its very best, it was all about that SEC speed. And Jim Tressel knew this. And I thought this was interesting. Butch Reynolds was the very first ever speed coach, official speed coach in college athletics, in college football. And Jim Tressel brought Butch Reynolds on, to be their speed coach. And he was the first NCAA approved speed coach. I thought that was interesting. Something else I learned about Butch Reynolds, that, he loved football. Football was actually his first love. That's what ultimately allowed him in his post-racing days to, of course, be involved in the football program, his relationship with Jim Tressel, of course, but had a chance back in 1989. He had a tryout with the Cleveland Browns, and basically he made the team. He made the team, and they basically said, hey, we want to use you as a wide receiver / tight end, and we want to take advantage of your speed. Keep in mind, back then in the NFL, obviously they had quarterbacks, they passed the ball, but it was a very run-centric NFL time, during that time. But they wanted to open it up, and they wanted to use his speed to attack the outside, and he was all for it, but he was making way more money participating in these races than he was being an NFL player at that time. How times have changed. But between that and what went in to this 30 for 30 film false positive, which will come on later on tonight on ESPN, our conversation with Butch Reynolds around the corner. But he's very nice guy. I enjoyed my time talking with him. So we'll have that coming up for you around the corner. So today, no surprise, there was really nothing that was interesting or that was out of the ordinary when it came to, obviously, mandatory minicamps. You had your Jamar Chase show up. You had your Joe Burrow show up. There's no T. Higgins because, of course, he hasn't signed, when they put he hasn't signed the franchise tag. So until he signs that franchise tag, he can't participate in any on the field team activities. So, and this is why, obviously, I don't think anything's going to get done until closer towards, obviously camp, whenever that time comes. But yeah, there's going to be no T. Higgins at this, unless all of a sudden the Bengals come out and announce that they get a deal done. I've been adamant that there's just no way in hell that you're going to have Joe Burrow, the highest paid quarterback in the NFL, and you're going to go on and sign T. Higgins to about a market deal, which would be in that 23 to 25 mil a year range, doing all of that. Right around the time that you should be starting negotiations with Jamar Chase after, of course, we saw where the market got reset when you look at what Justin Jefferson did with that 35 mil a year range. So it's kind of just that sitting back and waiting. T. Higgins will not get a deal from the Cincinnati Bengals. T. Higgins has $21.5 million fully guaranteed for this upcoming season, and he will play on the franchise tag. He will. But at the same time, I wouldn't show up either and risk any extra time out on that field. But here's my problem with that. Like, I understand why people say, okay, use this time for leverage. But are you really hurting anybody other than yourself? Because let's keep in mind, T. Higgins is still working out, right? So if he's still working out, if he's still trying to stay in game shape, if he's doing stuff by himself off to the side, if you have to work out anyways, if you have to get in shape anyways, wouldn't you be doing more of a service for yourself by working out with the rest of the team? Like, T. Higgins has to know his future is not in Cincinnati. I know it. And I'm a boob. I'm a nobody. I am an absolute nobody. I know that T. Higgins will not be a Cincinnati Bengal after this upcoming season. You at home listening or watching know. The front office knows. Everyone that understands football knows that he will not be a Cincinnati Bengal after the upcoming season. So what are you holding out for? You're holding out for an extension that's not coming. Well, he wants to limit his time out on the field so he doesn't get hurt. He has to train anyways. He has to prepare for the upcoming season anyways. So why do athletes do this? You're only doing a disservice to yourself. Kev brings this up all the time. This is why you see it. It's like clockwork. Every season, the athletes that were having that off-season, back and forth with the negotiations, and they end up holding out, and then they finally cave, and then they report to camp, and then they're out of shape, I guess, and then you got to try to get back in shape really quickly, and then you end up pulling a hammy. You end up then having these nagging injuries for the rest of the season. You are not doing anything but a disservice to yourself. In fact, all the things that you're trying to prevent from happening, you are almost increasing the chances of it happening by either A, not working out, so you're not helping you or your team there, or B, if you are working out, you're also not helping yourself out, because working out off to the side and not being out there with your teammates, that doesn't help. This is supposed to be a Super Bowl caliber roster coming into the season. And I'm not trying to make this a bigger deal than what it is. I don't think it's a humongous deal. I just think that athletes, you're not making the point that you think. Every year athletes do this. They hold out. Front offices don't budge. They will get a deal done at the absolute last second possible. All right, that's the front office is going to spend money no matter what, and I'm not going to let them off the hook either. You're going to get the deal done eventually, right? Not with T. Higgins, but like more so with the quarterback stuff. Like the Ravens thing was just weird to me. You knew you were going to pay Lamar Jackson. Why'd you wait? Kudos to the Cincinnati Bengals. It took about a month and a half longer than I thought. I was like, what is taking so long? You're going to pay him, just pay him. But to the Cincinnati Bengals' credit, there was no quarterback contract drama like everyone outside of Bengals country had anticipated. Oh, man, the Bengals are cheap. Well, that cheap front office made him the highest paid quarterback in the history of the National Football League. So that's my only pushback when athletes do that, I'm not going to report to camp. I'm not going to do this. You're only hurting yourself, especially T. Higgins in this situation. If he's doing it because of leverage, you have no leverage. You're not getting a deal done. Well, he's limiting injuries for the next season. Then don't play it all this year. Don't play it all. Eat the $21.5 million. And don't play it all until 2025. That way, when you get that contract, you'll be playing with guaranteed money and all that stuff. But you look kind of foolish because he's going to end up playing come week 1. It is what it is. I'm Justin Kinner. It's the Kinner and Kev Show, 1410 ESPN Radio. How about this news that did catch my attention as a Cleveland Browns fan? And I'm not saying I'm shocked by this, but I mean, it was kind of wild because there was really no indication of it coming down to this. But so again, when minicamp got officially underway earlier today, we talked about Jamar Chase showing up, right? Jamar Chase skipped OTAs, but he did report to mandatory minicamp. All right. No Amari Cooper for the Cleveland Browns. No Amari Cooper for the Cleveland Browns. And I don't know what to make of that. I don't know if that's going to be a long-term issue. The difference is this. I'm very adamant and aggressive that T. Higgins needs to show up to camp. He just needs to sign the franchise tag because we all know that deal was not getting it. He is not getting an extension. He will not be a Bengal after this upcoming season. He just needs to accept it, show up and play, and help his teammates and help himself. He's going to get that $21.5 million guaranteed, so show up to work. But as far as Amari Cooper is concerned, I have no clue what to do here. He's entering his last year of his contract with the Cleveland Browns. Now, for all the Browns haters out there, you can hate on him all you want. You could be in love with Jamar Chase and T. Higgins, this, that, and the other. Well, while everyone is drooling over Jamar Chase and T. Higgins, the best wide receiver stat-wise over the last 2 years in the AFC North has actually been Amari Cooper. He's been the most dependent. He's been the most consistent. All right, he's played in more games than those two. He has more touchdowns than those two. He has more yards than those two. He's been the leading wide receiver in the AFC North the last 2 years, even with the revolving door at quarterbacks. 5 different quarterbacks this past season still had a 1,000-yard season. First time that the Browns, since their return to Cleveland, had back-to-back 1,000-yard receiving years from the same wide receiver. And Amari Cooper, he's like 29 or 30 or something like that. Like he has an opportunity to get one more big contract. And so this situation is completely different than T. Higgins from that standpoint. I don't think they're very similar at all. This one could get ugly. Because I don't know, like Cleveland, so I think it could be fixed pretty easily. The Cleveland Browns, you have a very rich owner with Jimmy Haslam, of course. They've done a good job of using the big contracts on the roster to restructure them, to roll them over into bonuses, and then to use that money that they save against the cap to take care of someone else over here. The problem is those have been for like those anywhere between $6 to $9 million contracts. Amari Cooper is going to cost you anywhere between 25 to, anywhere between 24 to 28 in that range. So that's kind of where I'm at when it comes to Amari Cooper. Amari Cooper deserves to be paid. Amari Cooper has been a fantastic Cleveland Brown. Well, so this is what's been unfortunate about this stretch for the Browns with the Deshaun Watson saga is that Amari Cooper, Nick Chubb, David Njoku, like these have been three just premier star athletes for the Cleveland Browns, face of the franchise type athletes, and they've never been able to get the attention that they deserve or the credit that they deserve, because anytime the Browns are mentioned, it's all about Deshaun Watson, it's all about the quarterback situation, it's all about Joe Flacco coming in and being that fantastic storyline last year. But when you strip that noise away, what you have had is three of the three best tandem of athletes in Cleveland for the Browns since their return to Cleveland. True professionals, show up to work every day, produce every week, right? Like that's what the Cleveland Browns have needed. That's just been overshadowed by the storyline of the gross stuff that Deshaun Watson was involved in off the field. And unfortunately, that'll continue to be a shadow that follows this team moving forward, because the only thing that's going to matter to come out of that is if they win. Now, they won last year. They made the playoffs. They didn't win in the playoffs. It was a great storyline. They battled through adversity, yada, yada, yada. They lose the best running back in the NFL week 2, 5 different starting quarterbacks throughout the year, somehow won 12 games, made the playoffs, yada, yada. Great. But this Amari Cooper thing is different than any other, because they restructured Nick Chubb's deal. They took care of him. They could have cut him. They restructured it, so it was a win-win for both sides. They've done well by all of their star athletes in the past. They are not going to snub Amari Cooper, but they have a decision to make because they have a lot of money. They have to look at Myles Garrett, who's going to be asking for some primo money coming up when you look at the big-time dollars that are going there. They have to look around. You paid Deshaun Watson a lot of money, and I'm going to hold him to the same standard that I do Joe Burrow. I don't think Joe Burrow needs Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. He wants them. But when you pay someone that much money, you better be able to roll out there with whoever at wide receiver and still win football games. And you may say, "Oh, that's a weird thing to say." Look at the quarterback that just won back-to-back Super Bowls. Oh, well, he had Travis Kelce. Yeah. Then maybe the Bengals should put a little bit more emphasis and prioritize the tight end position. So I'm going to do the same thing with the Browns. David Njoku, that's who you invest into. If Deshaun Watson is who you say he is, you may not need to do the extension with Amari Cooper. Would I like it? Yes. But I don't know if it's smart of the Cleveland Browns to go all in money-wise, $25 million a year for a wide receiver when you have so many other great athletes that you have to pay. Between Denzel Ward and Myles Garrett, all right, obviously, you got to keep that offensive line in check. David Njoku is going to be a huge centerpiece of this offense moving forward. That's all. I mean, you can mock me all you want, but when you look at the makeup of the Kansas City Chiefs, quarterback, tight end, great offensive line, complimentary run game, elite defense, the Cleveland Browns check off all of that, but they don't have the Patrick Mahomes, obviously, but Deshaun Watson's paid to be that. And Deshaun Watson last year, when he was healthy and out on the field, he was throwing for 300-plus yards and multiple touchdowns against the Tennessee Titans. Then he was out a month. Then he got healthy again, and then he absolutely dominated the Baltimore Ravens defense in Baltimore, and then he was out for the rest of the season. You can mock him all you want, but when you get that Deshaun Watson, when you have that offensive line, when you have the Browns' top 10 run game in football, when you have a top 5 tight end in David Njoku, and when you have arguably the best defense in football with the number 1 pass rush, the Cleveland Browns are closer to being the Kansas City Chiefs than the Cincinnati Bengals are. That's not a hot take. You may not like it, but it's true. The Cincinnati Bengals aren't closer to being the Chiefs than the Browns. The Bengals, okay offensive line, second worst defense in the NFL, second worst run game in the NFL. They're not close to being the Kansas City Chiefs. The Browns roster-wise, they're close. They just got to put it all together. We'll see. But this Amari Cooper thing is something to keep an eye on. No doubt about it. It's the Kinner and Kev Show, 1410 ESPN Radio. Hour number 2 coming up next.